Well, thank you for staying.
Hell yeah!
I don't want to waste everybody's time. I think they said I have 15. I don't know if I'm going to hit that. I'm very nervous in public speaking. I don't know where to begin. JBL, where should I start?
Back in my day.
I'm a lot of things in this world. Well, first, congratulations to all the other inductees and presenters. We've seen some very talented individuals here. There are talented individuals in these seats. There are heroes of mine. There are people I have looked up to. There are people I have worked with. And I'm proud to be here, and I'm proud to have shared wrestling rings and roads and cars with a lot of you that are here today. I've been a lot of things in my life. First and foremost, currently, and probably the thing that I'm most proud of, is I am April's husband. None of this is about me. This is all going to be about the people that got me here to this moment. Because I think professional wrestling is so interesting. I think a lot of us have quirks and we're so ego-driven, and you gotta believe in yourself so much to make it. You have to sacrifice, you have to survive. But the truth is, none of us really get to where we're going without a village. My wife has helped me tremendously, and she currently inspires me to be a better person, to try to understand myself and other things better, and I love her to death. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. The business is a lot different when I got in it. But the basics and the fundamentals of professional wrestling are the same as they ever was. If it worked in the 1940s, it can work today. You just have to know how to apply it. And the basics and the fundamentals of professional wrestling were taught to me by Ace Steel. I started goofing off in a backyard with my friends in 1993, right? It was just something to do. I liked comic books. I liked stuff that got beat me up, that got me beaten up at school. I didn't fit in anywhere. And in fact, show of hands, how many here are wrestlers? How many here have taken a bump before? Now, do you remember why you got in the business in the first place? Because you loved it. You had to love it.
Harley race.
Well, we're going to get to Harley. Don't worry, we're going to get to Harley. I got into this business because I loved it, but I also didn't fit in anywhere. I tried out for the football team my freshman year of high school. They told me I had to cut my hair. I said, well, that's not for me. I was more into being the opinionated punk rock kid with a 6-inch livery spike mohawk. I thought that was more important at the time. I tried out for the wrestling team. They said, congratulations, you made it. Man, you gotta fucking cut that hair. And now I walk around and all the NFL players got mohawks. I feel like I might have missed the boat, but I'm glad I did, because I had to outsource, and I found wrestling. Goofing off in the backyard with my friends. I was the ambitious one. I borrowed some lumber from local businesses, let's just say. And I built myself a wrestling ring that our friends would goof off in. That turned into saving money to buy a ring from somebody in Texas. And I think it wound up being an old UWF ring. And from there, I realized we ran our first show in 1997, and I remember watching the VHS tape that night and thinking, holy shit, we suck. But I had gone out and got a promoter's license because the only thing I knew was punk rock. I knew do it yourself. I know if you wanted to do something, if I wanted to be in a band, go to the pawn shop, maybe borrow an instrument. I didn't know there was wrestling schools. The internet wasn't really a huge thing yet. I met Ace Steel and a guy named Danny Dominion in the bathroom of the Rosemont Horizon at a WWF house show. They gave me a business card, and I was like, what is this, a wrestling school? I didn't know you had to go to school. I had heat on me because I was a backyard wrestler. I showed up, they beat the crap out of me. And it's been a love affair ever since. From there, I wrestled every weekend I possibly could. Nothing mattered. Girlfriends, jobs, responsibilities. The only thing that I cared about was getting in a car with whoever I could and driving anywhere. And we were lucky because we were in Chicago. We were very central. I could drive to Michigan and the Upper Peninsula. I could cross over into Canada until I got thrown out the first time. You could go to Minnesota. You could drive down to Kentucky, Indiana. 13, 14, 15-hour drives to Philadelphia. We went everywhere. Now this is back in the time when you had to write down a resume, put a couple of promos and matches on a VHS tape and send them out. And promoters would call you, and Mickey knows. And you would get booked. And I think the first match that I would say kind of put me on the map was when I got to wrestle two guys, Rey Mysterio Jr. and a man by the name of Eddie Guerrero. And I wish Eddie was here.
Yes.
I wish Ray was here. He appears to have left. That's fine though. I understand, Ray. Glad, right? There's a lot of people I wish were here. I wish Steve Kern was here. He's not dead. He's just in Florida. That might be worse. Sorry, I know like 90% of the wrestlers in the world live and are from Florida, so you know, what do I know? I was fortunate enough to meet Eddie Guerrero. I think it was maybe 2001, and man, this guy changed my life. He was so kind and he was sweet. And he was going through it. He had just been fired. He was going through a divorce. He was worried about seeing his kids, but all he knew was wrestling. So he was on the road. He was working independent shots. He was getting booked in New Japan. And I remember meeting him for the first time and him looking at me and saying, I don't like three ways, they don't make any sense to me. If it's okay with you, you and Ray put it together and just call it to me. And I had very limited experience with going out and just kind of winging it. You know, I'm an indie kid. We would sit down and map everything out from A to B. And man, if you got concussed or the ring broke or you know, a riot broke out or something happened, you didn't know how to zig or how to zag. You learned on the fly. But Eddie that night made me realize how garbage I actually was, but made me feel like, man, there's so much room for improvement. And if this guy is willing to step in the ring with me, wearing basketball shorts and Doc Martens, I need to up my game to show him respect. Because none of this is about me. I stand on the shoulders of giants, literally. I would not be able to do any of this if it wasn't for people like Eddie Guerrero, for people like Tracy Smothers. I wish Chris Candido was here. And I am now, thank you, I am now at the age where, unfortunately, my contemporaries are passing away. Jay Briscoe, Bray Wyatt, two people who should still be with us. Two people who I consider to be young, still. Terry Funk recently just passed away. I was fortunate to know Terry Funk. Man, Terry Funk lived a life. I think if you would have asked Terry right before he went, are you ready to go? He would have told you he was ready to go 10 years ago. But Bray, Jay Briscoe, I don't think they were ready, so I think it's important to remember them. The first name I ever worked in the wrestling business was Tracy Smothers. And I was scared to death because he came up to me in the locker room and he said, oh, hey, man, hey, oh, you look good, you swimming, you eating cakes and tuna, lifting weights, doing limit lifts. Oh, man, listen, man, I see those matches you have with Ace and with Chris Hero, man, all that stuff you do. Oh, God, I can't do any of that. I can't remember any of that either. So if it's okay with y'all, is it okay if we just call it out there? And I acted cool, like, sure. We'll just walk and talk, baby. I was terrified. And when I saw him in the ring and he ran outside, he grabbed the fans' nachos and their cheese, and I knew I was wrestling in a barn in southern Indiana with a 5.5-hour drive ahead of me, no shower. I was like, this son of a bitch is gonna cover me in nacho cheese. We didn't talk about this in the back. This wasn't the plan. And he grabbed me, and he grabbed that nacho cheese, and he said, "Lock the cheese, brother." And a light bulb went off in my head, and I said, "This guy's just talking to me. This is amazing. I mean, I don't have to talk to people before the show? Wow, this solves so many of my problems." That began the part of my career where I would actively hide from my opponents. Oh, let's call it that. You know? All of that independent wrestling and traversing the United States and going into Japan, going to Puerto Rico, going to Europe. Back when you had to smuggle merch into Europe and you were terrified because you were just a 19, 20-year-old kid and you're reading the declaration thing and you're like, if you have more than $10,000, and you're like, oh shit. If I sell too many t-shirts, they're gonna get me on the way back. Nobody's ever taught me about any of this stuff. God damn it. I landed a spot in Ring of Honor. And it's the first time I ever met Mickey James, who's a Rhea. She's like a rabbit's foot. She's not a bad penny, but a good penny. She keeps coming back. I met Mickey James for the first time. Eddie Guerrero was still wrestling there. I learned from a guy named Raven. And I learned, listen, I know a lot of people, they might not like Raven. Here's a little secret too. A lot of people might not like me. But Raven, coupled with the things that Eddie has taught me, and Tracy had taught me, and Ace taught me, and you mix it up with what Raven taught me. He's like, kid, listen, it's not about the moves. The first time I ever wrestled Raven, if I may afford some of your time for this ridiculous story, he got a ridiculous amount of color on one of those Wednesday night TNA pay-per-views, right? And I'm wrestling him for Norm Connor's IWC. You were probably there, Joe. I think you were 12. He's got the Crockett era Ric Flair, just athletic tape on his head. And he's sitting there, and I've never met him before, and I walk up to him, and I'm like, hello, sir, hi, you know, like, my name's Punk, you know, whatever you want to do. And he's like, just tell me a couple things you do, kid. You know, maybe we'll do this. And as I'm talking to him, he just starts leaking. He hasn't done anything, but he got such great color Wednesday night at the Nashville Fairgrounds. He's leaking. And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, you're bleeding. And he goes, shit. There's a match about to go out. Some kid's about to debut. Raven grabs him and he goes, sorry kid, we gotta go. And he's just like, start fighting. And we just start brawling and we go through the curtain because he's already bleeding. He's like, we gotta go. So once again, thank you Tracy Smothers, thank you Eddie Guerrero, thank you Ace Steel. You have given me the knowledge to not be afraid of going out and doing something on the fly with this man that I had just met and never wrestled before. He's bleeding. I start chopping the shit out of him. And he's going, And he starts giving me his shoulder. And I'm like, this motherfucker, you know? Stop giving me your shoulder. I'm waffling this shit up. A little lesson learned. We get in the back and he goes, kid, come here. Listen, chops are stupid. They hurt, and they suck, and don't ever chop me again. And I was like, duly noted, but we didn't talk about it, so, you know, I didn't know. Armed with the new knowledge that I got from Raven and so many others, I continue to wrestle. Tommy Dreamer calls me one day and he says,
the WWE wants to take a look at you.
And I said, shut the fuck up. No, they don't. This is 2004, maybe. He says, no, they really, really do. I was doing dark matches. Tom Pritchard was booking extra talent. And he said they legitimately want to take a look at me. And I thought, well, this is the chance. WWF to me was never the goal. I looked up to people who went to Japan to wrestle. I thought the idea of going to Japan and being a superstar, like a Bruce Brody or a Stan Hansen or an Eddie Guerrero, and then coming home and nobody knowing who you are, man, I thought that was the coolest idea in the world. That's what I wanted. When I wrestled in Japan, Hashimoto told me, maybe too big cruiserweight, too small heavyweight. My dreams dashed against the rocks, but But Tommy called, and I said, Tommy, if they legitimately want to look at me, I said, I'm not a WWE guy. You know, I'm a skinny fat. Hunter famously called me that on TV. He wasn't wrong. I wore basketball shorts. I dedicated myself. I told Tommy, I said, give me 6 to 8 months. I'm gonna bust my ass and I'm gonna get into shape. And I do everything I can to when they legitimately take a look at me, they will not be able to say no. And in the line of this, none of this being about me, I want to thank Val Venus. I had a match with him on Sunday Night Heat that got me my job. And I knew it got me my job. And people will tell me that I'm cocky, and I know, sometimes I am, but I knew leaving that ring, I said, I almost had abs, JBL, believe it or not. You said something up here yesterday that really resonated with me. You gotta work out hard to look this bad. The same is true for me. So I'm offered a job, and I'm blown away. And I pack up everything I own. In my 2001 Monte Carlo, which is the first thing I ever bought with my own money. I'm gonna jump back in time really quick here. That 2001 Monte Carlo, I don't know if anybody's ever heard this story about Harley race in my 2001 Monte Carlo. The first time I ever met Harley race, he was a special guest referee for a match I had in Wisconsin. And Harley comes up to me before the match and he goes, hey kid, don't do any of that 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 bullshit. I don't get up and down as fast as I used to. And I don't think Harley wanted to count like Bronco Lubitsch just yet. I think he had too much pride. And I was terrified of Harley Race. This is the toughest man professional wrestling has ever seen. Sorry, Hoke.
Yeah.
Every time I would get taken over in a headlock takeover, Harley would come over and he'd go, what do you say? And he would stick his index and his middle finger straight up both my nostrils. And I was just a young 20-something punk kid looking at the lights going, why is Harley Race doing this to me? And if you've ever met Harley had legit hands of steel, and his fingers were like sausages. So to actually jam his fingers in my nose, it hurt quite a lot. Not as tough as Harley Race. Harley Race liked me for some reason, and I didn't get it. Tracy Smothers liked me for some reason, and I didn't know why. I never fit in anywhere before. Eddie Guerrero loved me, and I never knew why. Later that night at the bar, Harley Race is accepting shots from every single fan. He's getting loaded, but if you know anything about Harley Race, you know this guy can get loaded. His loaded is a different planet than anybody else's loaded, right? But Harley was a little bit older. He wasn't the legendary Harley from the 70s. Sure, he could probably drink hard. I think he might have got to him a little bit. Ace comes up to me and he goes, hey, can you stick around? We'll just take Harley back to the hotel later. I said, yeah, sure, no problem. So it's later that night. Harley comes out of the bar. We're walking to the car, and I'm watching Harley. It sounds very disrespectful to say he was waddling, but it had a lot more to do with the state of inebriation than it did with his body type or anything else. Harley waddles out of the bar, and he stops, and he gives me one of these. This is my brand new 2001 Monte Carlo. It's the first thing I ever bought with my own money. I sit shotgun, Ace sits in the back seat, and we're driving to the hotel. And I'm looking at Harley, and all of a sudden he goes, And I'm driving my car, and I'm just like, there's no way. He's the hardest man in professional wrestling history. This man can hold his alcohol. Rolls the window down, turns in a noise I will never forget as long as I live. He says, and spits a mouthful of vomit out the window. And I'm driving, I'm going a good pace. It immediately blows back all over a steel. And I look at the rearview mirror and I'm just like, holy shit. And I look at Harley and he does it again. And he slowly turned, like I don't think Harley had a quick bump in his body, everything was slow. He just slowly turned to the window and he went, like a balloon deflated. So I start to pull over. He does it again. But this time, since I'm pulling over, he turns to me. Swallows. And grabs my forearm and says, "Don't pull over. You'll alert the authorities." This continues the entire way to his hotel room. We get to the hotel room, we walk him in, I'm thinking, man, I gotta tuck this motherfucker into bed, you know what I mean? Like, but we get to the elevator and he turns to me, he's covered in puke, and he says, "Well, my friend, I hope you have it in your heart to forgive me for throwing up in your car." And I said, "Yeah, man, you're Harley Race." And then he proceeded to give me a big hug. It's a good rip, Harley. The point of all that is, you know, I literally, it's in the name. I was just a punk rock kid from Chicago. I didn't fit in anywhere. I wasn't supposed to fit in any locker room. Gosh, I remember the first time I was in WWE and I didn't feel like I fit in. The names on that roster that were regular house show loot guys: JBL, Batista, Shawn Michaels was still on the road. I know because I had to tag with him and take all the bumps. That was my job, and I did it gleefully. Ric Flair was still on the road. Triple H, The Undertaker, Edge, Jeff Hardy, Umaga. I'm forgetting people. That's the shit you think about being up here and not writing anything down. Somebody's gonna text me. I hope I forget somebody who's dead so they don't text me. At this point in my life, I'd rather be haunted than texted. I know this is long, guys, but I'm having fun. I hope you are too. I got a job with WWE, and man, it's because I wouldn't be denied. And then when I got there, I feel like I worked so hard that my heroes, the people I looked up to, became my peers and my rivals. Nikki?
Let it go!
I'm driving my Monte Carlo, which is probably still stained with Harley's puke, from Philadelphia. I wrestled an hour in the Philadelphia Armory. Everything I own is in my car. I drive it straight to Chicago. I got a job. I'm finishing up my dates with Ring of Honor. And I'm just a kid. I'm high. I'm 25, 26. I'm high on life. It's amazing. The sun's coming up. I'm driving on I-90, I'm in Indiana, I see the sign that says "Welcome to Chicago," and my phone rings. And I look, and I know it's a 203 number, so I know it's somebody from WWE. So I answer it, and it's Howard Finkel. And Coco, it warms my heart to know that I got the same phone call you did. Yours just was a couple decades earlier. Howard Finkel's on the phone, he goes, "Hello, CM Punk." I can't do a Howard Finkel impression, I'm not gonna do one. He tells me that I'm booked for Monday Night Raw. Now, I wrestled Saturday night, and I'm like, oh shit, it is like 9 in the morning, Sunday morning. What do I gotta do? He says we're in Cleveland. And I was like, Howard, I just drove all night. Like, if you would have called me 5 hours ago, I would have been in Cleveland. I just would have pulled over. You know, he said, don't worry about it, we'll fly in Monday morning. Great. So I get home, I rest. Monday morning, my first day on the job, I show up to the rental car desk in Cleveland, Ohio, and there's Mickey James. And I go, Mickey, what are you doing here? And she's like, they're calling me up, and I heard, is it me and you? Are we doing something? And I went, I don't know. So we rode together to the building, and we get there, and somebody comes up to us, and they says, you guys are on Sunday Night Heat. Now, for the kids in the audience, that used to be a little show. No, I'm just kidding. So me and Mickey get told that we're together, but we're running around. Do you remember Alex, SmackDown writer? Okay, Alex Greenfield. He couldn't tell me shit. He was like, you guys are together. And I went, me and Mickey got together. We're like, great, are we brother and sister? Are we married? Are we together? Are we like Mickey and Mallory from Natural Born Killin'? I just started like, spitball. And as we're talking, Michael Hayes walks by and goes, CM Punk, I don't get it. First day on the job, and I looked at Mickey, and Mickey's been busting her ass in Ohio Valley Wrestling. And I looked at Mickey, and I was just like, oh man, pressure's on. I can't fumble this fucking ball because it's her career. Hunter comes up to the ball and says, you just thankfully reminded me. And he looks at Mickey and he goes, you, I get it. And he looks at me and he goes, you, I get it. He goes, together? Because I don't fucking get it. And he walks away. So to set the table, debuting, Mickey is debuting. I'm supposed to be a babyface. I have purple hair.
Yeah.
And we're in Cleveland and they're going to announce me from Chicago. And I just, I got like shitty tattoos and I'm with the hot girl with the big boobs. And I just remember pulling Mickey aside and going, this isn't going to work. They're gonna boo the shit out of me. And you're going to take the straight for this one. We came up with an elaborate entrance, and I think we even might have kissed, and that was the kissing back. The instant I kissed you in front of Cleveland, they might have started throwing fucking garbage at me. I proceeded to have an okay match, but it wasn't up to snuff, and I remember getting it back, and Arn and Hunter and Sean were just kind of standing in the corner, and it felt like high school because they were all just like kind of pointing. I knew they were talking about me, and I was just like, I guess I should have been. And then I got sent to Ohio Valley Wrestling, and I figured 6 months tops. You never would have got to meet me, JBL. How sad. But the best thing about being in OVW is I got to work with Danny Davis. And I don't know, this is a recurring theme in my career. I don't know why Danny liked me. All these old school guys, all these tough guys, I don't know why they put up with me, and I don't know why they liked me. Paul Heyman would allow me to come to the Davis Arena on Tuesday night and help write the television show. Because my thing was, I'm never getting called up. That was my one chance. Back then, with all those names on the roster that I listed, it was just a Shark Tank. You weren't going to get a shot. And I figured that was my one shot. But as long as I was going to be in that house, I was going to learn as much as I could from Danny Davis and Paul Heyman. And Paul spent his time and taught me how to write a television show. He taught me how to time a television show. He taught me half a second out, half a second in for commercial. Danny Davis and Paul let me sit in the control room with them and learn how to edit a television show Wednesday night. This is when I started drinking coffee. I developed insomnia. That is not a joke, that is real life. I figured I had 6 months and I was going to learn as much as I possibly could, and when I was back on the Indies, I was going to apply that. I slipped through the cracks. Paul Heyman got me in and got me on television. Somehow with CM Punk, I figured I was going to be an astronaut or a farmer or something. But to me, that meant, it's not that Vince didn't care. It's just that he didn't care enough about me or ECW that I was able to slip under the radar of CM Punk. I was CM Punk 15 years old, wrestling in the backyard. I had no business being on WWE television with these giants and these legends wrestling as CM Punk, but I did. And JBL, I don't know, they put the title on me. I won Money in the Bank. I was in the right place at the right time. And, you know, this guy who, let's be honest, people tell horror stories about, okay? He's the only, I remember having a match with Batista and you, and I'm the little guy, I'm taking bumps, and I'm supposed to be a babyface, and I'm supposed to be the champion, but it was, you know, I'm getting shit kicked out of me, I'm getting powerbombed, you're Larry, I mean, you know, like, it was the job, and I remember laying there, and they kind of threw the title on me, this is the main event, it just wasn't working. There's two household name superstars and a new guy who probably didn't deserve the gold at the time, and I was laying there thinking, well, this sucks for me, but like, I mean, I understand the position I'm in. So, you know, I don't know, back to the drawing board. And you marched back to the ring, unannounced, didn't tell anybody you're doing this, didn't tell me, you got in the ring, you picked me up, and I was like, oh, he's just gonna clothesline me again. And you shot me off the ropes and you said, Duck 1 GTS. And I was just like, first guy to do that for me. Thank you. Like Eddie Guerrero, like Harley Race, like Tracy Smothers, like all these other people that I watched on television that I wanted to emulate, this is somebody who I thought never in a million years would like me. For some reason he did. I don't know. I don't know if at some point along the way I gained your respect. I gained Taker's respect. And that is the point of all this, because none of this is about me. This is about the people who came before me. And I miss a lot of them. I miss Eddie. I miss Chris Candido. I miss Tracy Smothers. I miss Harley Race. I miss Terry Funk. But it makes me appreciate the ones that we still have, that I can still text every day. I can still text Jerry Briscoe. I can still text Bret Hart. And I can still see all of you. And if it wasn't for all of you, and I mean that, everybody, because that's the other big thing, is I'm appreciative of every promoter who's ever paid me or not paid me, because it's been a lesson, you know? None of us are anything if it wasn't for the fans. Now, we can all be egomaniacs and talk shit about how I'm the best, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that, but the fact is that the seats are empty. There is no us. Now I know throughout my career, probably rubbed some people the wrong way, some people like me, some don't. What I always had was the backing of legends. Teal, your father, who's my hero, Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper's the reason I'm a wrestler today. And I remember the last time I saw him and he told me he was proud of me. So when people tell me that they don't like me or the internet's mad at me, I just kind of chuckle because Roddy Piper liked me. Dusty Rhodes loved me. I had the respect and the backing of Harley Race before I went to the WWE, and to me, that means more than all the money in the world. But because these legends put their stamp on me before anybody even knew who I was, it gave me the confidence and it gave me the ability to succeed in a place where I don't think I ever fit in. And I've always struggled with a little bit of imposter syndrome. You know, it's a strange business. You're supposed to just talk shit. You're supposed to tell everybody that you're the best. Everybody compares numbers. I drew this number. I made this much money. I won this title. I did this. I did that. I completely lost my train of thought. It's like one day I just woke up and I was an old timer and I was at the Cauliflower Alley Club. The point of the story is, what means the most to me now is sharing a locker room and have those kids come up to me and they tell me, and I get emotional when they tell me, man, I saw you sit cross-legged on a stage in Las Vegas and that brought me back to wrestling. Or I see a kid come up to me and they show me a tattoo and it says straight edge. And they say, I've never done drugs, smoked, drank because of you. And to me, just like the stamp of legends, that means so much to me. And if there was a reason I'm still doing this, it's that. People come up to you and they say, you saved my life. It sounds a little far-fetched, but goddamn it, I understand. And I take that responsibility to heart, and that means a lot to me, because I was touched through pro wrestling by legends like Roddy Piper, and Terry Funk, and Harley Race. To know that I've inspired even just one kid to do something positive, or to get into this business, and to respect this business, that means the world to me. So this award means the world to me. I'm sorry for wasting so much of your time. One more Harley Race story, because this one's good. I think you're really gonna like this one. Is it okay if I tell this? You could have said no, you really do like me. God bless you. Thank you. Yeah. I main evented Madison Square Garden against this guy. And I was terrified. I was like, he's gonna kill me. This guy hates me. He's gonna make me drink a beer. I don't know what. And right before the match, he walks into the locker room and just looks at me dead in the eye, shakes my hand, and goes, it's Madison Square Garden. Lights on, probably 20,000 people. Nobody gets to do this. Congratulations. Enjoy yourself. Have fun. And I was just like, oh man, I don't think I can tell anybody that story. He's really kind of a nice guy. It's gonna ruin his whole gimmick. I'm on a show, we're in Eldon, we're at Buzzer McGee's, which is the bar that's directly across from Harley Race's school. Hockey, you know what I'm talking about. No? Okay. I might have, did you go to bed? No, you're still there, okay, good. So, Harley buys shots for everybody. Now we just got done working the show, and we're sitting there, and the waitress comes by and she puts a shot in front of everybody, and then here's me, she puts a shot in front of me. And everyone looks at me and I go, and she goes, Harley Race bought those shots, honey, you better drink it. And I said, I don't drink. And she said, Harley Race bought those shots, honey, you better drink it. Coco, I said, I don't drink. And she said, Harley Race bought those shots, honey, you better. I thought she was going to beat me up. She like got in my face. And I was just like, I don't drink. So now everyone's giving me shit. It's 8th grade all over again. Just drink it. It's only one shot. Just drink it. I'm like, I don't drink. I look over at Harley. Harley's looking at me. He's holding the shot glass. And I'm just like, no, I guess it's been a good run. I'll never work in the business again. I don't drink. And everyone did the shot, and mine's still sitting there. I think Ace probably took the bullet for me and drank it. And I was just sitting there, and I felt, I don't know, I felt this, it just felt weird. So I was like, let's just make it weirder. And I get up and I go to the bartender and I go, do you guys have milk? And she's like, hang on. She opens the fridge and she goes, who knew? We have milk. And I looked and I counted and I was like, I need 17 shots of milk. Now, I'm not a suicidal person. But I was flirting with it right here. So we get 17 shots of milk, and just like before, a little deja vu, this same waitress plunks down a shot in front of everybody, but this time last is Harley. Plunks a shot of milk right in front of Harley Race, and I'm sitting behind him and I'm looking at him, and he does this. Is that milk? And I'm holding the shot glass, and I went, yes, boss. And everyone waits, nobody's touching their shot glass. And Harley Race picks up his shot glass, and he raises it to me, and then everyone else else follows suit, downs the shot of milk, slams it in front of him, and he didn't beat me up. And I figured at that point, if Harley Race accepted the punk rock kid from Chicago who wore basketball shorts and Doc Martens and had no business knowing we're wrestling for Harley Race, that I was going to be okay. Everything else has been gravy since then. I have dreamed bigger and done things 15-year-old me never would have believed. And I've failed huge. But I think I've succeeded even bigger because I've learned from all those failures, and it has been my pleasure and my honor. And if I have made you happy in a wrestling ring, if I have made you mad in a wrestling ring, that's even better.
Yeah.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very